Hi, I'm Rajiv Satyal. I'm a comedian and a host. I am Indian.
And I'm American. So this show will tell the story of Indians in America.
I live right here in Los Angeles, the home of Warner Brothers, Disney, and now Funny Indian Productions. My guest picks a game, and we play it. So enjoy. What do you bring to the table?
I am here with my guest, Vikram Gandhi. You may know him from Vice. You may know him from his documentary Kumare. And you may know him from just being an Uncle G who walks around New York City. Brooklyn mostly, right?
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn now.
Where were you born? Let's start at the beginning.
I was born in Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Harlem, or Washington Heights. My dad is a doctor there, so.
Oh, wow.
You know.
So trace for me, okay, after that. I want to get to how you became, the behemoth standing in front of me today. The behemoth
I had a growth
standing in
spurt
front
at
of
28.
Okay.
Let's see.
When was your growth spurt? Were you always tall as for your age?
No,
or?
probably when I was like 16, I grew like 7 inches.
Okay. I can grow 7 inches depending on who's standing in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I was a grower, I actually had a job at an internet startup that was like early web video startup. It folded about 8 months after I
You joined.
got there, but I made a living, got some unemployment, traveled around the world after that for a year on unemployment.
And this was just for fun?
Yeah, and then I came back and said, I want to work in film, and I got a camera from the company that I was working for when they were selling everything.
Yeah.
And I just came back and said, I'm a freelance camera person. I'm a filmmaker.
Okay.
And I just said it one day and then just started trying to get work and used that sort of time of unemployment from the government to supplement starting a freelance career.
So was the impetus really that you had worked for this startup company and that got you interested in film?
I interned at Miramax and I wanted to work in film. I interned for the Maisel brothers. I wasn't necessarily one of those people who was like, when I was 8, I had a camera and I wanted to, I wasn't like that.
Okay.
I was into art. I took a lot of art classes in college, writing classes, and then it just felt like I want to make movies, but I didn't really exactly know what kind or what.
So you wanted to tell stories? You wanted to show vignettes?
I don't know if I knew exactly why I wanted to make movies. I thought I wanted to tell stories.
Right.
And then pretty soon after that, I just really liked shooting. I liked being behind a camera and finding myself in places that I wouldn't normally be in.
Right. So Kumare was the documentary where you are a false guru.
Yeah.
And you get people to follow you. So
Yes.
that's where you came up with that idea.
I had this side project where I was trying to make a movie about American New Age culture, like a comedic doc that had the tone of Best in Show or something like that.
Oh, Christopher Guest.
But with real people, and it wasn't a scripted thing. It was like I wanted to make about the real people in the world.
Okay.
And I was shooting it it was kind of like my own film school. Like I was shooting this thing, paying for it myself, and it was kind of endless. And this thing that was creeping in the back of my mind was like, it would be so much funnier if I just became one of these people.
Right.
Like that would be funnier. That would actually say the point of the film I was trying to make. And it wouldn't be about judging people. I could then just do it on my own and sort of show what's bullshit and what's real and figure it out. Basically my partners and I tested out the character and it was okay. Like when we first started, I went to Central Park and tried it out, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're like Borat, but not as good." And then, I taught a class in somewhere in New Jersey, and people were so into it. Like all the people who were in the class were just so excited about this like mystical man from the East coming there, and we told people they could have a consultation with the guru afterwards. And then, you know, there was some girl who came up to me at the end, and she just looked at me. She was this beautiful Dominican girl, probably in her early 20s, and she just looked at me and she was like, "Whenever you were talking, I was just looking at you and I said, I just follow you anywhere." And I was like, "Oh." You know?
Yeah.
And then after that happened, we looked at that footage and we're just like, this is crazy. This is a movie. This is actually a real thing we should try to do. And that's, you know, just went out and, you know, basically shot for 4 months and made Kumare, and that's what happened.
And also, after that, then trace how you got to Vice.
Actually, I was back in Brooklyn, and the Vice office is a block away from where I've lived for a while.
Right.
And, you know, I get an email from some old friend of mine who's like, "Vice just made a pilot for HBO. You know, anybody who wants to work on this thing?" So I connected with a guy named Joseph Patel who used to work there.
Okay.
And he's like, "Yeah, come on by." And I went and met with everybody and pitched them a couple stories in India, and through that, you know, I did a couple stories in season 1, and then I get like a text message after season 1 ends from Shane being like,
Shane is the main guy.
yeah,
right?
he's like, "You want to host next season?" And I'm like, "Yeah, cool," like, because I don't know what the I'm doing.
Right.
I'm trying to make another movie, but I don't really know, and
Sure.
this is an HBO show, so.
And they also, they go where other reporters don't go. They tell stories that other reporters don't.
Yeah, they're into weird. They're into the stuff that like was obscure and nobody else would report on. And they also were like, "Yeah, you can be a guy on the show." I was like, "I'm like a big brown dude with a beard. Like I'm allowed to be on a TV show."
Yeah. I'd usually be the subject of one of these pieces.
Yeah, not like being
the guy
studied.
telling
like,
the story,
yeah.
right? Or the study.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
The studier.
And you know, it's pretty refreshing.
Do you ever feel fear for your life? I mean, on Vice, and you guys get into some really sticky situations. Have you been in a situation where you thought, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this?
No. I have a movie called Barry.
Barry? Yeah.
It's about Barack Obama's youth, and you know, that movie was sort of inspired by my own time at Columbia and me reading about Barack Obama when he went to Columbia. So the movie takes place in 1981.
Okay.
And you know, it's really about race in America. It's about a mixed race kid who transfers to New York City in 1981 and tries to figure out where he belongs, and it happens to be sort of the origin story of Barack Obama.
Yeah. Do you feel inspiration come to you in your body in a certain place? When you get an idea, where does it come to you?
Well, the best ideas I have are the ones that make me feel extremely like worried.
Okay.
You know, like the feeling of like pretending to be a guru was like, I can't do that. Like that's up. And I was like, well, I should stick with this feeling and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with a lot of stuff that happens in Vice. Like, should we open that door? Right. Let's go there. Let's go call that guy.
Yeah.
Should I try to buy his kidney? Let's invite the gun smuggler over.
Yeah.
That feels really wrong. Let's do it. And even with Barry, it was like, am I allowed to make a movie about the sitting president as my first feature, narrative feature? And it felt awkward, and the whole thing felt awkward, and I just like, whatever that feeling is, it's like a strange, you know, I don't know if it's somewhere near the gut, you know, of like, this makes me feel a little creepy. That's a good place to go, so.
Okay. When you think about being Indian, I mean, how much has that influenced your life, do you feel? I mean, personally, professionally?
Well, I mean, it influences me a lot because a lot of the things that I think about, at least the stories that I'm telling, probably started, you know, in my head when I was a kid. You know, I think Kumare is a story that came from my childhood being around gurus and
Right.
sort of like joking about how gurus were and I was like, oh yeah. And so years later, I would make a movie that would do that. My parents are like, shaking their head, like, of course, we created this monster,
Yeah.
And Barry is a lot about college for me. So a lot of it, comes from, a lot of these stories come from childhood, and
Sure.
and so I think it totally influences my work.
So tell me a little bit about whether you think you've made it. Do you think of things that way? Do you define it that way? I mean,
Have I made it?
Yeah.
I feel like my career is just starting right now. Like this is the beginning of it.
Sure.
Because
a couple of Netflix specials that are your own, and I mean, a regular on a HBO show, that's pretty.
I guess so, but I mean, this is just the beginning.
Sure.
I think it took me a while to really commit that this is like what my life was going to be.
Right.
And so it wasn't so clear cut, and so now I think I was just experimenting out with like what I was capable of doing, and so now, yeah, I feel like it's the beginning of something.
How do you define yourself? I mean, in a word, what are you? Director? Are you a producer? Are you an actor? Are you a host? Are you a storyteller? What do you?
I don't know. I guess I'm a filmmaker. That's it.
And that Vice still kind of falls under that. In some
Yeah,
way.
I would say that. I mean, I think I
segments.
look at those things as films.
Right.
That that maybe don't have this. They have a format that's kind of a template, but it's still a film, and a lot can happen in post that will, maybe neuter things from being as crazy as they are when you're making them,
Right.
or maybe just make them in a format that's more digestible. But the process of making them is, each one is just always a totally different set of rules, and there's a lot of trying to like figure it out when you get there,
Right.
and a lot of those things, those skills actually from the road made it a lot easier to make a narrative feature because. If something is completely when you get to set, that's normal. Like when I get to a country, and we have no idea what the hell we're doing when we get there and we have to figure it out, that's sort of what the morning is. So
Right.
I think it actually did really prepare me to make a narrative, just like, as far as having the experience of trying to figure it out when you get there.
You've traveled to a number of countries.
A lot of countries, yeah.
Give me a rough number.
Oh, I have no idea.
Like, is it 10? Is
Maybe
it 50?
50, maybe like 50 or something.
Okay. And what's the most memorable one that sticks out?
Most memorable. I mean, I think Antarctica is very memorable. That's not really a country, though.
It's not a country, but that is. How did you go via South America?
I went
Via
on a
Australia?
I went to Antarctica via South America, and I went on a 60-foot sailboat. It was the worst and most terrifying journey I've ever been on.
Worst as in you regret going even
As
now,
in, like,
or
I didn't puke, but everyone else around me was.
because of you?
Because, it's rough. The Drake Passage is the worst seas in the world.
That's what I've heard. Do you think things generally in the world are getting better or worse?
I think we live in, an amazing time. We can basically do everything that we could have done, and all this new that's all happening with technology. So I think it's an amazing time to live. But I think most people are up, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, you think most people are, or you think some people are? Thanks.
I don't know. It
I mean,
seems
you
like
think
most people
are all just a general sort of amount of good and evil, or is it consistent and just bigger, or do you,
Well,
do
I
you
mean, I
actually
think it's
feel
the
like there's
least
a trend?
brutal time, right? Like,
Yeah.
while Syria is happening, there was a Syria like every year in the Middle Ages or something. There was just
yeah.
constant
That was
violence,
normal.
and there was more killing and death, and but I don't know. I think that's a hard thing. That's like a matter of context, right?
What is your favorite time of day?
Like 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows. Finally, what advice do you have for people who are, trying to be you?
Trying to be me?
Just advice, for any...
Go to med school. Get your degree. Well, I think there's a lot of easier ways to make a living. And, I think you just have to decide whether you want to make the sacrifice to do something and believe in stuff. Because I actually do make a concern about only working on things or putting my name on things that I really care about.
Right.
And that's limiting and it's difficult. And the hope is that it pays off later on.
Right.
But I think you have to just have the stomach for being I'm okay to be the shame of my family and just be in the gutter so that I can, come out again. And it takes that. I think it takes that. There's definitely times where you're just what the am I doing? This is a crazy career.
Yeah.
And as long as you're okay with that, then you can do it.
Next week on What Do You Bring to the Table?
We were in New York City, and I was with Hersha, my wife, and a few friends, and I texted you, and I said, do you want to come meet us?
So fun.
And you said, I gotta tell you, I have literally no makeup on right now. And when women say that, generally, they still have concealer or they still have something. And you showed up with no makeup.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That is some serious confidence.
Well, first of all, the amount of times the amount of my life that I have to be done up, if I don't have to be, I'm 0 or 100.
You were 0.
Yeah, I was pretty 0. Wow, can we just keep talking about how 0 I was? That's cool. I'm controlling makeup on your face right now, remember
And
that.
you could poke my eye out.
Yeah.